I knew the moment I shook his hand that he'd never built anything real in his life. Not a team, not a deadline, not a consequence. His grip was soft, all show, no pressure. He smiled like a man who thought charm was currency, and worse, believed it never devalued. His name was Chase Langford, and he'd just inherited the CEO title, like it was a Rolex passed down over dinner. I'd given this company 15 years of my life. I walked in when it was 6 floors, and a nervous boardroom full of mid-level anxiety. I helped shape policy frameworks, cleaned up compliance messes, and kept us one step ahead of a dozen lawsuits that would have killed lesser firms. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't loud, but when risk knocked on the door, I was the one who answered. My name is Thomas Reddick. I'm 54 years old, and until 3 hours ago, I was the Chief Risk Officer at Lazenby Strategic Systems. Chase didn't waste time. He leaned back in my old boss's leather chair like he was trying it on, legs crossed, eyes amused. "We need younger minds now, Tom," he said, like he was comforting a dog before the vet visit. "Fresh thinking. More agile perspectives." He said agile like it was a spell, like it could erase 15 years of case law, litigation strategy, and real-world scars. "What we're building," he continued, "doesn't need anchors. It needs wings." I smiled politely. He gestured to the corner, where a kid in loafers was half scrolling his phone, half smirking at me. Derek, the frat brother, the new direction. "I don't care about legal," Derek said without looking up. "Rules are for losers." It was surreal, standing there listening to it. I expected something more tactful, a handshake, a transition plan, maybe a half-hearted offer to consult. But this wasn't that. This was a decapitation with a wink. "You're not under review, Tom," Chase added. "We're just moving past legacy models. No hard feelings." I nodded, picked up my briefcase, said nothing. In the elevator down, the silence was loud. Not the awkward kind, the decided kind. I didn't punch the wall. I didn't call my wife. I just stood there, watching the numbers descend like the company's future. When I reached the parking garage, I sat in the car longer than I meant to. The key was in the ignition, but I didn't turn it. I thought about the files on my desktop, the contracts I redlined, the clauses I wrote by hand. I thought about a report I flagged 6 months ago, buried liability in a startup they were circling like sharks. I'd warned the board it was radioactive, acquisition at their own risk. But now, the boy king was moving forward with it, and I was no longer in the room to stop him. I started the car, pulled out slow, didn't look back at the building. It wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been for a while. What Chase didn't understand, what Derek was too arrogant to ask, is that risk doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It just waits. It festers. It matures. And when it explodes, it doesn't care how agile you think you are. I didn't want revenge. That's not what this was. But when you spend 15 years cleaning up messes, you learn how to smell one before it hits the carpet. And this one? It was already leaking. The tea's gone cold by the time the press release hits the wire. I don't move. Just sit there in the glow of my monitor, watching Derek's smug grin stretched across the front page of Forbes, like he built the acquisition with his bare hands. "Visionary risk taker," the subheadline reads, "bringing Lazenby into the next era." His quote, "The future belongs to the bold." I nearly laugh. It's almost 1 in the morning. I haven't slept, haven't even stood up in hours. The room smells like black tea and old paper. Contracts I printed months ago. Files I kept for reasons I didn't know until now. I scroll through the press materials again, slower this time. Phrases jump out at me. Disruptive synergy, aggressive growth verticals, frictionless integration, empty jargon dressed up like a business plan. But I know what's underneath. 6 months ago, I reviewed the due diligence package for this acquisition. Spent 2 weeks combing through vendor records, compliance certificates, indemnity language. The whole thing reeked. Hidden arbitration settlements. One pending EEO complaint that mysteriously disappeared mid-review. But it was Appendix C that lit the fuse. A footnote buried in the risk disclosures. Clause 12.9.1. It released the seller from liability if criminal negligence was found post-acquisition. Criminal negligence. Not civil, not clerical, criminal. And now they've signed it. I'd filed a full report back then. Raised every flag I had. I even walked into Chase Langford's office and laid it out, point by point. He thanked me, told me it was useful insight, then ignored every word of it. Now his pet frat boy's treating it like a victory parade. The stock's already up 8%. Shareholders are euphoric. Twitter's calling it a masterstroke. I call it malpractice. They never revoked my off-site clearance. No one even thought to ask. It was buried inside our cloud security protocols. An exception, written back when we were piloting hybrid access during lockdown. Most of them forgot it existed. I didn't. I opened the server. Authenticate through my private uplink. Access granted. They changed the front door, but left the back one wide open. Rookie mistake. Inside my own vault. The data's right where I left it. Clean, time-stamped, scrubbed twice over. Internal memos. Correspondence between their general counsel and the acquisition target's board. Quiet mentions of non-disclosed conflicts. Legal leakage wrapped in friendly phrasing. Everything I need is already tagged and indexed. I start the clock. 3 days. That's what they said in the investor call. Full public announcement, closing signatures, celebration dinner already booked. 3 days is plenty. I'm not bitter. People think that's what this is, some late-stage revenge fantasy. But it isn't. Bitterness is loud. It scratches and barks and wants the world to see it bleed. This isn't that. This is math. You push a system too far, it breaks. You put liability in the hands of children. It mutates. They call me outdated, cautionary, old thinking. Maybe I am, but old thinking saved them 12 times. Now I watch. I pour a fresh cup of tea, add nothing, sip it slowly as I listen to the chatter pick up online. Market blogs amplifying the deal. One talking head says, "This move proves Lazenby's not afraid to disrupt its DNA." Another says, "It's bold, calculated, real generational leadership." I click on the post, scroll to the comments. Someone already dug up the target's prior lawsuits. They don't know what they're looking at yet, but they will. The engine's already running. At 3:12 a.m., I send the first file. Encrypted, anonymous, targeted, a journalist I trust. She'll know where to dig. By sunrise, the smoke will be visible. I don't warn them. I don't reach out. I don't ask for credit. They wanted risk. They're about to drown in it. They rang the bell like they'd just cured cancer. Big smiles, tailored suits, champagne flutes held high. Derek stood in the center of it all, soaking in the cameras, jaw squared like a man who thought he'd conquered something. Chase flanked him, trying to look serious and visionary, but you could see it in his eyes. The giddy little boy who thought Daddy's company just leveled up. They posed with the press team, shook hands with minor tech influencers, and toasted to the new era of Lazenby Strategic Systems. I watched the live stream from my kitchen table. No sound, just the visuals. No need to hear the nonsense. At exactly 10:43 a.m., I uploaded the first dossier. Anonymous tip, encrypted channel, directed to the right inboxes, not the generic government spam filters. I've built relationships over the years, quiet ones. People who don't need context when a file lands in their hands with my signature pattern. Timestamps, documentation, original metadata, intact. First drop went to the Office of Corporate Oversight. Second, to a financial crime unit that's been circling Lazenby's margins for a while. Third, to a journalist I knew back when she was grinding FOIA requests out of a shared studio in Brooklyn. She once told me, "Don't give me scandal, give me receipts." I just did. But the fourth one was personal. It went to Gavin North, former VP of Operations. They cut him loose 4 years ago in a cost-saving shuffle, right after he called out a minor procurement fraud that would have made the company look bad before a round of funding. He runs a podcast now, Whistle in the Wires. Mostly niche stories, mostly ignored. But he's got a core audience, and more importantly, a bone to pick. By 3 p.m., Twitter was already foaming. Someone had picked up the language from Clause 7.3.1 in the acquisition contract. It wasn't even hidden, not really. That's the brilliance of corporate misconduct. It doesn't wear a mask, it wears paperwork. The clause voids indemnity if prior misconduct is discovered. Most people would miss it, gloss over the fine print in legalese. But this crowd, the financial law nerds, they feast on this kind of thing. Screenshots started circulating, analyst threads breaking it down line by line. Someone highlighted a line from the target company's 2019 internal audit, buried on page 72, where an HR manager had noted systemic noncompliance with federal reporting regulations. That report was in my dossier. I'd kept it all. By 5:30, the hashtag #LazenbyLeak started trending. I smiled once, just once. Then I went back to work. Second package, clean, precise. This one wasn't for regulators. This one was for the press. I crafted it with the kind of care most people save for love letters. Chronological incident log, highlighted violations, attachments embedded with full headers, no redactions. I knew what to say, what not to say. Let the documents do the talking. I sent it to 6 outlets. 2 bit immediately. One was already drafting their lead by the time I hit send on the third wave. That one went to the buyer's board. Not to their legal team, not to their PR rep. Direct to the board. Private server. It took some favors to get those emails, but I'd planned for this. It's amazing what people leave behind when they think you're gone. The board didn't even wait for the morning. They backed out before midnight. The deal collapsed. $88 million. Gone. Not theoretical value, not projected gains, actual money in motion, pulled back, frozen. Market confidence cratered, and by the opening bell the next morning, Lazenby stock dipped 17% in under 2 hours. Analysts who'd just praised the move started walking it back on live television. Early concerns, they called it. Unanticipated turbulence. Chase tried to hold a press conference. Looked like he hadn't slept. Stammered through some boilerplate about internal review protocols. Derek wasn't even there. He went silent. No tweets, no media rounds. His LinkedIn went dark. Someone leaked a screenshot of a Slack message he sent that night. It just said, "Did someone set us up?" No. Derek. You set yourself up. You just didn't know someone still had the match. The email comes from an account I don't recognize. No signature, just a time and a place. Downtown, Hotel Alderon, private conference suite. The subject line reads, "Closure discussion." I know better. No one asks for closure unless they're bleeding. I don't reply. I just show up. The Alderon is the kind of place that never advertises. All brushed brass and sound-dampened hallways, Concierge desks staffed by people trained to forget faces. I'm directed to the third floor, Suite C. I knock once. The door opens before my knuckles hit the wood a second time. She introduces herself as Lydia Ames, crisis strategist, hired gun, high-priced discretion in a designer pantsuit. She doesn't smile, doesn't blink more than necessary. She simply gestures toward the table. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Reddick." This is off the record. I nod once. Step in. The room is set like a mediation. Long table, 2 chairs on either side, water glasses that haven't been touched. Across from me sits Chase Langford, CEO in name only now. His skin looks gray under the lights, eyes sunken. The tailored jacket he's wearing doesn't fit him quite like it used to. He doesn't speak when I sit. Lydia does. We'd like to have a constructive conversation. I place the briefcase on the table. Don't open it. Just rest my hand on it. Constructive, I say. Now you want constructive. Chase clears his throat. Still says nothing. Lydia presses forward. Mr. Langford and I understand there may have been oversights in the acquisition review process. I let that hang. Oversights, I repeat evenly. That's the term we're going with. She glances at Chase, but he avoids her eyes. I lean forward. Let me make this simple for you. I filed a 36-page report flagging the acquisition as a legal minefield. I documented every liability, every clause, every single unresolved conflict of interest. I submitted it to your executive board and to your compliance division. No one responded. I watch his jaw twitch. No apology, just tension. I also retained copies of every communication, every meeting summary, every revision draft I was told to streamline. I flick my fingers lightly against the briefcase. Most of them were scrubbed from your system the week I was fired. Lydia interjects, careful and measured. We're not here to dispute past decisions. We'd like to discuss a mutual path forward, a way to mitigate exposure, I finish for her. Limit blowback. Salvage what's left of the company before the DOJ knocks on your door. Chase finally speaks. His voice is low, rasped. We didn't know. I smile without warmth. You didn't care. I lean back, let the weight of that settle. Then I quote it, word for word, so there's no mistaking the origin. I don't care about legal. Rules are for losers. That's what your golden boy said in the room while you nodded. Lydia straightens. Mr. Reddick, is there a reason you agreed to this meeting if you weren't open to negotiation? I finally open the briefcase, reach in, slide a sealed envelope across the table, unmarked, plain. This is the last clause I wrote before you terminated my position, I say. It was buried in the executive transition documents, one of the ones Derek signed without reading. Chase stares at it like it's ticking. It states that in the event of criminal negligence by company successors, any and all confidentiality restrictions, including NDAs, arbitration clauses, and IP non-disclosures, are nullified, irrevocably. Lydia doesn't reach for it. She just looks at me. You're bluffing. I nod at the envelope. Open it. She does. Reads it in silence. Twice. Her hand tightens around the edge of the page. Chase is sweating now, actual beads forming at his hairline. You're exposed, I say, fully, and not just to regulators, to shareholders, partners, civil suits. Whistleblower protections are already in motion. My name's not even on the complaint. Lydia starts to speak again, but I stand. There's nothing left to discuss. They don't try to stop me, and there's nothing they can do. The wind off the coast cuts sharper than I remember. Not harsh, not punishing, just honest, clean. It drifts through the trees like it belongs here more than I do, but I don't mind. I've always preferred places where silence has weight. The cabin sits back from the cliff line, old cedar planks grayed by time, shingles curled at the edges, like the house itself is exhaling. No one knows I'm here. That's the point. I haven't checked my phone in 3 days. It's off, buried in a drawer next to an old compass I never use, and a knife I once carried every day. The settlement money hit quietly. No ceremony, no final meeting, no paper trail that could point anywhere obvious. It showed up the same way these people do damage control, efficiently, and far too late. I don't need it. Not really. I'd already built the contingency fund years ago, just in case the floor dropped out. But it's not about the money. It never was. It's about the silence that followed. The real kind. The kind that means something has landed. Something is over. I sit on the porch in the mornings with coffee. I grind by hand, the way my grandfather used to. No internet, no news alerts, just a stack of books I've read twice already, and a journal I didn't think I'd ever use again. When I finally open it, the page stares back, blank and clean. I write one line. They called it old thinking. I called it survival. I tear the page out, fold it once, burn it in the metal tin beside the railing. The flame curls around the edges before consuming the ink. I watch it until there's nothing left but black ash scattered across old wood. I don't save the journal. I don't need a record. I already lived it. Eventually, the headlines catch up to what I already know. It starts as a ripple, a leaked memo here, an anonymous source there. Then it becomes a wave. Shareholder lawsuits hit first, wrapped in language that tries to sound disappointed instead of furious. The DOJ inquiry follows like clockwork, digging into the acquisition's timeline, the signatures, the fast-tracked due diligence. The podcast episode drops mid-week. Gavin's voice plays clips from the leaked files I fed him. One of the whistleblowers from the acquired company gives a voice-disguised interview that all but confirms the internal rot. Her phrase sticks. They sold us poison, dressed as gold. Then comes the class action suit. 3 former employees of the target firm, 1 internal compliance officer, allegations of negligent misrepresentation, unlawful termination, collusion to suppress audits. The filings go public. The board issues a statement full of vague regret and recycled phrases. Oversight, unanticipated turbulence, unforeseen complications. I almost laugh when I read that one. None of it was unforeseen. It was simply ignored. The board votes. Chase is out, effective immediately. Derek's name isn't mentioned. He's already a ghost. The new CEO is a woman with a background in risk management. 20 years in regulated industries. She doesn't smile in the press photo. That's a good start. I close the laptop. Let the waves do the talking again. There's no sense of victory, no adrenaline left. Just space, just quiet. The kind that doesn't demand anything from me. I don't send follow-ups. Don't leak another file. I never even cashed in the favor I was offered when the first reports hit. The point was never vengeance. The point was the pause that comes after a lie collapses. I think back to that office. Chase behind the desk. Derek in the corner smirking, telling me rules were for losers. I wonder if he ever figured out that the rules were the only thing standing between him and the cliff. I sip my coffee. A gull screeches overhead and disappears. I was never the problem. I was the warning they ignored. And now, finally, they're listening.